So just had an opportunity to sit down with one of my real estate agents, Naomi, here in Nashville, and we had an awesome conversation, and I think it's going to bring a lot of value to a lot of people. So make sure you check it out, like and subscribe. Appreciate you so much. So buyer and seller scams. Buyer and seller scams are really on the rise. It's something that I think a lot of people should be looking out for in a real estate transaction.
Absolutely.
And maybe like unaware of. And I think possibly they have kind of that mindset like that it's just not going to happen to me. Like that, like how is that going to happen to me? You know, I'm working with a real estate agent. I'm wiring money over here. It should go where it's supposed to go. So you wanted to kind of talk, and I think you have some stuff listed out here and some of the scams that you're seeing right now and some of the things as a buyer and as a seller that maybe we should be aware of.
Yes. And there's two main groups that are being targeted in the buyer scams.
Okay.
So there's buyer scams and there's a seller scam. But the buyer scams, they're targeting, well, obviously the seller of the property. And if you are thinking of selling your home and you are thinking of selling it on your own, let's say you want to be a for sale by owner. This is a buyer.
This is a buyer looking to scam a seller of a property. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's either that or they're looking to make money off of a fake transaction.
Okay.
So as an agent, you have to be really aware because as an agent, it's our job to vet things, really confirm information, be a little detective on the scene, confirm things that are being sent to us, and because our clients are trusting us to do that.
Yeah.
And so when things, absolutely the job.
Right.
And when things are not adding up, I think in today's environment of real estate, agents are ignoring the warning signs that are going on, perhaps in their own mind.
You say in today's environment, maybe because they really just need to sell a property? Is that what you, okay.
Yeah, it is. You know, when their volume is down.
So they kind of just want to like look past it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
But you can't, because hundreds of thousands of dollars are transacting and they could be completely ripped off.
It could be completely fake. And so you could have a fake buyer. So if you are getting, like for instance, I get 2-3 of these fictitious emails a week.
Okay.
They seem like really great buyers. They're always like cash buyers, multi-million-dollar buyers. I mean, really intriguing. You're like, yeah, I want 5 of you. Let's do it. 3 in 1 week. Let's go.
Let's go.
However, usually on the second email, you're getting the request that they can only communicate via WhatsApp. And WhatsApp's a legitimate communication app. It goes around the world, but it's not legitimate if you want to do a real estate transaction because you want to be able to verify who somebody is, that they're a real person, that they're in a real location that you can confirm, and that they're a real buyer. And so they start you down this road. And a couple things that you'll notice right away is, well, one, I've never gone on WhatsApp to speak to any of them because I know it's a scam.
Right.
But if you are an agent who goes, man, this sounds great. Like,
or even if you're a for sale by owner, right? You're selling your property yourself and someone tries to connect you through WhatsApp and does that. That's probably the first red flag is if you get contact through WhatsApp, like you
delete it.
Yes.
Just delete it.
No matter how bad you sell your home, it's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
Okay.
And jumping straight to what happens, other than there's tons of signs along the way that you can ignore because when something's too good to be true, people ignore it.
Right.
And they're like, no, there's truth in here somewhere.
Right.
I'm just being paranoid. And so what happens is one of the scams is that they will send the money over to whoever you're trying to close with. And if you are...
They will legitimately send the money.
But it's not real money.
Okay.
Yeah. So here we're digging into this.
Yes.
So let's say you went under contract. It's an all-cash closing. It's a really quick contract to close period. So maybe 10 days, maybe 15 days. So your life is in an upheaval if you are the seller.
Okay.
You're not thinking about things straight. And if you're the agent, you might be like, yes, this is so exciting.
Right.
However, when that buyer offers to pay the entire amount of the purchase price, let's avoid the earnest money altogether. I don't need to send in 1% of the purchase price.
This is $700,000 purchase. Typically, the deposit's $7,000.
That's
They're
right.
saying, hey, we're not going to do the deposit. I don't need to. I can waive all my contingencies.
Yep.
I'm just going to send the $700,000.
Send it right now.
Okay.
Isn't that perfect?
But we need to close in like 10 days.
We need to close in 10 days.
Okay.
And so then
doing this through wire or cashier's check? Is there a difference?
So cashier's check, there's 2 different scams.
Okay.
So the cashier's check scam is going to be that they are going to send a cashier's check for the full amount of the entire purchase.
Okay.
And then it's very much like if you've sold anything like a tire or I guess 4 tires or something, a marketplace or any online sale, like direct sale to somebody, then you might be aware of this. They're going to send you more money or whatnot. In this case, they're sending more money than they should be at the time that they need to. And real buyers don't want to part with their money until the last second.
Right.
They really don't.
No,
They're
they don't.
nervous about things. They're still thinking about things. And so that's the first red flag. When they send the money, then a day later they've made a mistake and they need some of that money back. Now, legally, it's all their money and it's actually already posted in the account.
Even though it's fake money.
It's a cashier's check. And so cashier's check is supposed to be like cash.
Yeah.
And so when it hits the account, it shows up as real. It doesn't show up as fake until about 15 days later when it's cleared all of the processing. And so when they've made a mistake and they say, well, I need $50,000 back or $100,000 back, legally it's their money and they didn't legally need to put it in anywhere at that time.
Right.
And so there's not a lot that can be said unless you are on the other side being aware of this, being trained to say, well, we know this isn't going to clear. We can't send you any money.
Who's on the hook for that, though? Would it be the title company losing out on that in that
It's the
situation?
title company.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So
But the seller potentially put their property on the market, took their property off the market, stopped advertising it, lost potential buyers because you have a fake buyer in contract.
absolutely. And then you're getting tarnished a little bit because it looks like you had an under contract that you lost. Yeah, it's bad. And so it's just terrible because, and also you're supposed to be moving out of your house in 10 days.
Right.
And so you've got
packing
moving
boxes.
trucks, you've got boxes, you're making plans. Wherever you're going next, you're already making those plans. Maybe it's making offers on other properties, committing yourself to those offers.
Ooh.
And so it's a ripple effect of all these horrible consequences.
Yeah, like if you're selling a home, selling your home and to buy a home and you've got an offer on a home that's contingent on your selling and you've got a fake buyer.
That's right. Yeah. So those particular buyers, and I believe that I met one of those recently in person in real life, which was shocking because you always think that they hide behind things. And that was really shocking. And I could tell immediately. I was putting together all these pieces and going, this isn't real. This is crazy. Oh my goodness. This is like, I'm looking at this person.
This has actually happened to you. You've gone through this.
Yeah.
These aren't just crazy stories that people
It's
get
not.
together and talk about. Like it actually has happened.
It happened up to the point until I said, this is going to stop. This isn't real. And I'm not harming anybody.
Right.
And so the next scam, which is the more hands-off scam, which I believe is more of the people we're dealing with overseas and whatnot. I mean, I don't want to, they could be locally too.
Sure.
But that goes back to the WhatsApp scam. And then if you're being asked and you're an agent or you're a for sale by owner, it's really dangerous territory as a for sale by owner because you're not as aware of the agents. We're getting trained. We're supposed to be a little more knowledgeable about what's happening.
Right.
And so
And what to look for.
And also to verify things. Verify. That's your best friend.
Right.
And so that one is when they go to close, of course, they're always this cash buyer. They will send you fake documentation, but nobody ever calls the bank. Nobody ever calls the private wealth person.
Sure.
You know, it's a small percentage of agents who go, let me verify that. Let me make sure this is coming from a real company, a real bank. And so they
what happens in the situation if they actually close?
Well, that's
And
the
then
next scam.
And then sorry. So in the end, then 5 days later, they find out the money's fake, but the house is closed.
And the deed is transferred, and legally you've sold your property.
home, but you don't have any money.
You don't have anything, and you've lost one of your greatest assets, if not your greatest. So, and that's the fake wire, and that's the one that's going through these WhatsApp transactions. You never meet the person. You don't know where they're coming from. You don't know where they live. You don't know who they are, essentially. And then they say that they're going to close remotely with a mobile notary of their choice.
Right.
And then they send a wire, and this is beyond me. I'm not a financial expert, but supposedly, from what I've been reading and what I've been researching, it's a wire that comes across as real as ever, but when all the different steps to verify a wire go through, it's fake. And so, but at that point, you've already signed the documents.
What protection do buyers and sellers have in that situation?
Right. Well, there's all kinds of watch out things to kind of look out for. But the best thing to do is to hire an agent who is well trained, who knows what to look for, who's well educated in the business, is an expert at what they do. Because as a home owner, your job is not to sell your home technically because you're not an expert in that field. And so I think probably the most vulnerable group here is either a new agent or a desperate agent. And I don't want to throw any new agents under the bus because there may be some phenomenal.
They haven't been around. There isn't like a real estate agent for dummies handbook that kind of goes through all this stuff.
Right. You learn as you go.
Yeah, this is a repetition business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and you start to build your expertise based on experiences and based on conversations and just everything that you're kind of gleaning from being in it for a period of time. So It's a really interesting time. I'm noticing it a lot more in the past 12 months than when the market was in a different place. Oh yeah. Okay. When the market was in a different place, I remember starting just at the maybe summer of last year, starting to get these emails that were like,
just seems off.
It just seems off. And because I was doing so much business, if something seemed off, I was like, psh, I ain't got time for that.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
And so now that things are slower, you have more time to kind of digest things. You have more time to look at things. And for me, it took me into the realm of going, whoa, something's going on here that's not adding up.
Right.
And I want to do more research about it. And I think the greatest protection is finding an agent who is taking that step to educate themselves, to stay up on what's happening, because it's an ever-changing market. That's the great thing about real estate.
Yeah, and those situations, right? You're just thinking about it. I mean, I've had a couple of conversations recently with agents where it's like, you're like, you have a friend that's going to sell the home for you, and this is their first transaction they've closed this whole year. They're not connected to the market, and they don't know what's going on, and you're trying to help out a friend, but there could be serious consequences on the back end. And it's not because they're going to do ill will. They just don't know any.
They're innocently naive. And so they're not intentionally trying to hurt anybody. But when it's your home and it's your entire investment and it's your family's home, and you've just moved your family out of it, and you're sitting there with your kids, and then you get some news that, wait a minute, what?
We didn't have a real buyer here.
And we can't move into our new house, and we are now going to be living in, a hotel?
Right.
Relatives' houses? I mean, that's real. Wow. This is affecting real people. So, and it's something that's happening across the nation.
So that those scams are more scams that are kind of affecting the seller, as we have like a fake buyer. But we also have some scams where we actually may have like a fake seller.
Yeah. And this is happening. Okay. And this actually
happened in Tennessee.
Yes.
Like this is legit. We're not just talking about, crazy things that might happen in real estate. Like legitimately
has happened right here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the seller scam is really focused around land. And land is like so popular and so hot because everyone wants land, and people are moving to Tennessee. I want more land.
Yes. Yeah.
So everybody wants more land.
Yeah.
And people are moving to Tennessee really to get their hands on more land. So this scam you have to be careful of. So a lot of landowners, if it's just a parcel of land that their home is not attached to, they never go to it. They're not on the land all the time.
Yeah, they may not use it.
Right.
It may just be existing land that they just kind of have, and it's out there.
Yeah, and it could be
because taxes can be really low on land in Tennessee, right?
Yes.
The cost that you have potentially of just holding on to this land, if you don't have a mortgage on it, might be little or nothing.
It's incredible if you have 15 acres or more.
Right, and it's a wooded area. Your taxes are significantly lower. Anyways, okay,
So what's happening is, for these pieces of land, the scammer will contact an agent.
Okay.
And they will say, I want to list my land. And so here's a couple things that most agents never do. Okay.
To look to see if that are actually the seller record.
Well, you always look at the tax record, and you're like, great, you told me your name was this.
Yeah.
And I believe you.
Oh yeah, they're going to say it. Right?
I believe you.
They're going to say it. I am Keith Collins,
exactly.
And I own that property because that's Keith Collins owns it.
That's right. And I don't live in the state anymore, so I'm not going to be able to meet you.
Oh.
But it's land, so who cares, right? Well, I don't need to meet you. I don't need to talk about your house. We don't need to walk through your house. And nobody's asking these sellers to provide a driver's license.
Right.
Or proof of
ownership.
Yeah. Nothing.
Right.
And so they get this listing agreement, they put it on. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And they will transfer and go through the entire sale. And then the poor buyer who has no idea, or the buyer's agent, no idea, because when you're on that side, you have really not much to verify. It's really the listing agent who has to verify this information.
Right.
And so they will close on the property. And again, they'll have their notary in their location. It's like they have to set it up. There's a bit of a controlling aspect.
Okay, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking like there's a notary and they're going to have to show an ID.
Yeah, no.
So the notary's in on the scam.
Yes, the notary's in on the scam.
Wow.
And so they close with their notary, or else it's not happening. And again, we're in a point of the real estate industry where we're down on transactions.
That's why again, a lot of title companies, I've always wondered, like a lot of title companies will say, no, we have to use our own notaries.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, why? The buyers have their own notary.
Right,
yeah,
right.
No,
and you
because
get that
we
all
need
the
to
time.
approve to make sure that this is a legitimate notary.
Absolutely. And I've even had clients be like, well, my cousin's a notary. Can't we just use my cousin? And it's like, well, no.
Yeah.
No, you can't.
Right.
So they will sign these documents The money gets transferred over to their account
From the buyers. The legitimate buyers thinking they're buying a home from a legitimate seller.
And the scary thing about this one is because the legitimate seller, it's just land that they own. They're not checking up on this stuff.
They don't know.
They're
not getting a notification that their home got listed.
No. And so the first time that the legitimate owner of this property may know about it is when they don't receive a tax bill. And so if they don't receive a tax bill at the end of that year, whatnot, for their property, they have to pick up on that and go, whoa.
So these new buyers, like, it could be 6 months. They could be
building their house. they could have like 4 walls up.
Yes.
And the scammer at this point is off in the wind.
With your money.
With your money. And this is a really scary one because the deed legally transferred.
Yeah.
It's just the seller didn't legally get paid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really wild. So again, it gets down to if you have an agent and you're buying some land,
that's wild.
You really have to ask these questions of why is the seller selling? Where do they live? And it's questions that when you've been in the business a long time, you ask because you want to create the story. You want to know what's behind the sale. What do they know? And
I don't think most people just kind of instinctively think like you're lying to me.
Right.
We look for the good in people. You're lying to me. You're not really the seller.
Right. And the thing that one big telltale, at least to me, is if I'm on the other side of that transaction,
representing
if I'm
the
buyer.
Yeah. Okay.
You're asking questions about the land. So you're wanting to know, did they ever do this type of testing on it?
How long has it been in the family?
How long has it been in the family? Is there anything, when you're walking, what is this tree? There was this tree, do they have a story about that? So you're asking a lot of questions that only a seller would know because they're familiar with it.
And you're doing that to learn about the property, but also you're trying to protect your buyers.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to create these stories to get information. And if you are the listing agent, you've been contacted and you're kind of wondering, are these people for real? Always trust your gut. I'm a big believer in you got to go with those gut feelings. They're there for a reason.
Yeah.
And to ask these questions because you feel a little rude being like, can I see your driver's license? Can you just send me a screenshot of that? I'm Instagram verifying that you are the correct user,
Right.
So I think it starts with if you're asking several questions about the piece of land and they don't have the answer or they're really standoffish or they're hard to contact or they're, I'm in a place that I can't really communicate with you.
You need to dig in because some people could be hurt.
Yeah, and then you really need to go to neighbors even, perhaps, and say, hey, do you know anything about
the Smiths really from Australia?
Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
no, they're not.
No, they live just down the road. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So, because you can't always rely on the tax record because a lot of land is held in trust or held, and so they've got an address.
And that
really
land's been
anywhere.
around for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be years back since that stuff's been transferred. It's been the family forever.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes in some of these areas in Tennessee and other areas, the title work is not that great because there's nothing recent on it.
Right. Yeah.
You're literally going.
You're like, this is 50 years old or 100.
Going and pulling paper somewhere if you can find it, and unrolling scrolls.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So red flags. So if you're let's just talk to specifically I guess to the buyers and sellers, because that's who we're trying to protect here. What are the red flags? What should they look for?
Well, it depends if you're going alone or if you're doing it with an agent. And I always advocate doing it with an agent. Doing it with an agent who is educated, an expert in their field. I keep saying that because there's a real weight to it.
And an experience in land. I mean, even if you're just talking about land, it's totally different than just selling a residential piece of real estate.
That's right. You want to know things about, perk sites and if there's a well, if there's water, can it dig? The whole thing. You want to know the details. And so with the land, I think the greatest thing is asking the questions. And if you're not getting the right answers or it seems really vague, maybe step back, maybe talk to neighbors, try to reevaluate and just pause and don't get caught up in the rush of things because you don't want to rush into something and then end up with a horrible disaster.
That's crazy.
So when you're dealing with the buyer, the fake buyers, I think that one there's a lot more signs that you can look out for.
Right.
So if you're selling your own home, which is a scary thing in today's world because there are so many things going on that can go wrong. And so you're walking into territory and it doesn't seem like it because you're like, wow, I'm a capable human being and I can do this. Right. And you're at first glance, it doesn't seem like anything would be difficult, but there are so many levels of difficulty. It's like going through some sort of gaming challenge, and I don't even play games, but it's like going through all these multiple levels of a the game. And so, when you're on the seller side and you've got these scammer buyers, when you're walking through the home, and this is for the buyer or the agent,
right.
You're walking through the home and there's a vagueness. There's a vagueness of details, what they're looking for. And this is if you're in person. Like I had that person who I have a feeling.
But the buyer, so this is more on the agent because the buyer's usually not with the seller, right? When you're walking the property.
That's right. Unless it's a for sale by owner.
For sale by owner.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're the agent.
Detailed questions. If your gut's going off, ask more questions.
Absolutely. Because they're not doing the things, when you go through homes with buyers, there's just things that they ask.
I know everything about my house. I can tell you where the line is that no one else said there's a line that we hit 2 years ago.
You're going to know.
Because we were digging.
Yeah. And if you're with a scammer buyer and you're walking through the home and they don't care about the resale value, they don't care about the neighborhood, they don't care about the school zone, and they're not asking you questions about these things, they don't care about the age of the home, when you're pointing out things that you would think a buyer would be concerned about, they don't care. And they're making decisions on homes that you're like, this doesn't make any sense. Or let's make a full price offer with no contingencies, and you're looking at a light hanging out of a wall and you're like, that's not adding up.
Like, yeah, a normal person probably wouldn't do that.
Normal person wouldn't be willing to just let go of their cash like that. And so
it's not like you struck the holy grail here.
Right.
There probably is issues.
There's an issue. Okay. And so another one is a sense of urgency. I always love a buyer who says urgency, who doesn't, but it has to be for good reason. So if it's because of a job or if it's because of something that is behind the urgency that they can prove, and it's not just an urgency to gotta close.
Yeah.
I need in this house now. And so there's multiple. I'm going to check.
Because that goes, yeah, check. So that goes to the idea that the funds really need to be seasoned, right? If you're closing within that time frame, because the cashier's check's only good for 15 days.
Yep.
Or sorry, it takes 15 days to verify that the funds are typically real on the cashier's check.
Yeah.
So if someone's bringing a cashier's check trying to close in 10 days, potentially the money's not real.
That's right. And the one thing that was really interesting to me with the very real person that I had this feeling about is that originally I was told the timeline to purchase is 3 to 5 months. That's a long time. Like that's like a healthy, you're like, oh, we got time.
And then all of a sudden,
we
got to close in 10 days.
We got to close in 10 days. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's not adding up.
Right.
So and then it was, well, I'm living in a hotel and I need a home. And it was like, well, then how in the world were you thinking we had a timeline of 3 to 5 months? That doesn't make sense. And so if you're seeing things that are not adding up, that's a huge red flag too, because stories that are real always add up. A story that's real is just more details stacking upon details upon, and it's forming a bigger story and a bigger picture. And when people are creating lies, their stories are fragmented all over the place. And you're like, that doesn't connect with this. That doesn't, no. Right. And so it's just having the awareness to listen to your instinct, I think, big time.
And ask more questions.
And verify everything. Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
Hey y'all, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope it brought you a ton of value. Make sure you like and subscribe so that YouTube sends you more videos just like that. And I'll see you in the next video.